Hey everyone. Oh, frogs in my throat. Welcome back. I am, there we go. We're screen sharing. Maybe we can get that going faster. I can be doing that while I'm saying welcome back. Um, I'm wearing shorts, but it's a really lovely blanket. It's one of my favorites. It's soft on the inside and has this really cool, it's really, really soft. I don't know if it's cashmere or not. Anyway, I got some rest. I feel better. Um, We had covered the old charges, or at least Socrates' defense of the old charges. We got about two-thirds of the text left. You can see over here how far down we are. I'm going to reread this paragraph. We're going to start with the last paragraph I read. Again, I'm sorry that I wasn't feeling well in the last episode, in the last video. Um, and I felt like I was like trudging along and going too slow, kind of dragon tail. And I know that's boring. So I feel more energized now. I've had some caffeine. I am excited to be here with you. So thank you for being here. Um, let's get started. Let this suffice as a defense against the charges of my earlier accusers. After this, I shall try to defend myself against Meletus. Meletus is the main accuser, if I remember correctly. That good and patriotic man, as he says he is, and my later accusers. You couldn't like track all the details to keep the narrative going, um, just the way that I normally track arguments. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing that because I think that this is just very easy to follow. As these are a different lot of accusers, the later accusers, let us again take up their sworn deposition. It goes something like this. Socrates is guilty of corrupting the young and of not believing in the gods in whom the city believes, but in other new spiritual things. So I'm still scaffolding, just like I said I wasn't going to do. Later in the text, Socrates presses Meletus and says, are you accusing me of believing in different gods or of not believing in gods? And Meletus, for whatever reason, says that he's accusing Socrates of not believing in gods at all. And so Socrates uses this to defend against, not this, he uses the divine sign from the oracle to defend against that. He uses the fact that he didn't bring his family to sway their emotions as evidence that he's listening to the gods' demand for reason and truth and justice, the gods of the city. Um, okay. Such is their charge. Let us examine it point by point. He says that I am guilty of corrupting the young, but I say that Meletus is guilty of dealing frivolously with serious matters, of irresponsibly bringing people into court, and of professing to be seriously concerned with things about none of which he has ever cared, such as the young. And I shall try to prove that this is so. Come here and tell me, Meletus. Surely you consider it of the greatest importance that our young men be as good as possible. Indeed, I do. Come then, tell these men who improves them. You obviously know in view of your concern. You say you have discovered the one who corrupts them, namely me, and you bring me here and accuse me to these men. Come, inform these men and tell them who it is who improves them. You see, Meletus, that you are silent and know not what to say. Does this not seem shameful to you, and a sufficient proof of what I say, that you have not been concerned with any of this? Tell me, my good sir, who improves our young men? Meletus responds, the laws. That is not what I'm asking, but what person who has knowledge of the laws to begin with? Meletus responds, these jurymen, Socrates. How do you mean, Meletus? Are these able to educate the young men, uh, to educate the young and improve them? Certainly, says Meletus. All of them, or some but not others? All of the jurymen. Very good, by Hera. You mention a great abundance of benefactors, but what about the audience? Do they improve the young or not? They do too. What about the members of council? The councilors also. But Meletus, what about the assembly? Do members of the assembly corrupt the young, or do they all improve them? They improve them. All the Athenians, it seems, make the young into fine, good men, except me, and I alone corrupt them. Is that what you mean? That is most definitely what I mean. So this is that Socratic method we've been talking about. Socrates is asking Meletus to take up positions so that he doesn't have as much wiggle room when Socrates says, but you just said this and it contradicts this, and you need to think about that. Um, Still got sleepies in my eyes. You condemn me to a great misfortune. Tell me, does this also apply to horses, do you think? that all men improve them and one individual corrupts them? Or is quite the contrary true? One individual is able to improve them, or very few, namely the horse breeders, whereas the majority, if they have horses and use them, corrupt them. Is that not the case, Meletus, both with horses and all other animals? Of course it is, whether you and Anidas say so or not. It would be a very happy state of affairs if only one person corrupted our youth, while the others improved them. But just like horses, many corrupt the youth, and only a few good people improve them. You have made it sufficiently obvious, Meletus, that you have never had any concern for our youth. You show your indifference clearly, that you have given no thought to the subjects about which you bring me to trial. And by Zeus, Meletus, tell us whether it is better for a man to live among good or wicked fellow citizens. Answer, my good man, for I am not asking a difficult question. Do not the wicked do some harm to those who are ever closest to them, whereas good people benefit them? So it's good to be around good people, bad to be around bad people because they make you worse. Good people help you and make you better. Certainly. Um, the this association or virtue by association or growth or decline by association um, is very key to Aristotle's virtue ethics as well, and the development of character and the role of the best kind of friendship, the friendship of virtue, or the friendship of care, or the friendship of character, or the friendship of the good, as opposed to pleasure and utility friendships. We'll cover this again. But virtues of character or friendships of virtue slash character slash care improve one another because they're both good people working to be better people and working to have those around them be better. Somewhat because what it means to be a good person is to improve those around you. And Socrates is basically just going to say, I'm not stupid. Why would I go around making the people bad, knowing that it's going to hurt me too? This is a good solution to the prisoner's dilemma, or to selfishness in general, taking egoistic paths forward that in the deeper sense of hedonism, not still going beyond pleasure to oneself or what's good for oneself, but in the deeper, longer view of hedonistic calculus across time, um, this is still a rational argument for why hedonists wouldn't want to harm somebody else or wouldn't want to um, manipulate or take advantage or detriment someone else. And does the man exist who would rather be harmed than benefited by his associates? Answer, my good sir, for the law orders you to answer. Is there any man who wants to be harmed? Of course not. Come now, do you accuse me here of corrupting the young and making them worse deliberately or unwillingly? Deliberately. So he's really hammering all the points. Like, am I doing this on accident, or do you think that I'm doing this on purpose? What am I guilty of? Be specific with what you're accusing me of, and what you claim is morally faultworthy. Because an unwilling corruption may not be morally faultworthy the same way that a deliberate corruption is. What follows, Meletus? Are you so much wiser at your age than I am at mine that you understand that wicked people always do some harm to their closest neighbors? It's funny how he wraps it up in a false compliment or like benefit of the doubt kind of. Um, it's in like good faith. And because of that, it's very hard for people to um, accuse Socrates of ill intent whenever he points out that they're wrong. Well, good people do them good, but I have reached such a pitch of ignorance that I do not realize this, namely that if I make one of my associates wicked, I run the risk of being harmed by him, so that I do such a great evil deliberately, as you say. I do not believe you, Meletus, and I do not think anyone else will. Either I do not corrupt the young, or if I do, it is unwillingly, and you are lying in either case. Now, if I corrupt them unwillingly, the law does not require you to bring people to court for such unwilling wrongdoings, what I was just saying, but to get hold of them privately, to instruct them and exhort them. I think this is called mens reas in the US legal system. Mens rea. The intention or knowledge of wrongdoing that constitutes part of a crime, as opposed to the action or conduct of the accused. So there needs to be like intent in most crimes, not negligent crimes, but Yeah. Mens rea is about this mental state, and it's very hard to prove. For clearly, if I learn better, I shall cease to do what I'm doing unwillingly. You, however, have avoided, I was seeing if Winchester was coming in here. You, however, have avoided my company and were unwilling to instruct me. But you bring me here where the law requires one to bring those who are in need of punishment, not of instruction. And so, men of Athens, what I said is clearly true. Meletus has never been at all concerned with these matters. Nonetheless, tell us, Meletus, how you say that I corrupt the young. Or is it obvious from your deposition that it is by teaching them not to believe in the gods in whom the city believes, but in other new spiritual things? Is this not what you say? I teach and so corrupt them? That is most certainly what I do say. Then by those very gods about whom we are talking, Meletus, make this clear to me and to these men. So I think here he's going to go in and show how he's not really teaching. He's just trying to learn. I cannot be sure whether you mean that I teach the belief that there are some gods, and therefore I myself believe that there are gods and am not altogether an atheist, nor am I guilty of that. Not, however, the gods in whom the city believes, but others, and that this is the charge against me, that they are others. Or, so whether you mean all of that, or whether you mean that I do not believe in gods at all, and that this is what I teach to others. This is what I mean, that you do not believe in gods at all. So here he's not going to respond to whether or not he's actually teaching for a fee, which is what he says he doesn't do. They just follow around and learn with him. Um, or whether, but before that, he's going to say, okay, well, yeah, I'm not, now you're saying I'm doing something different than the charges you bring against me. You are a strange fellow, Meletus. Why do you say this? Do I not believe as other men do that the sun and the moon are gods? No, by Zeus, gentlemen of the jury, for he says that the sun is stone and the moon earth. That's Meletus saying that. And this is a weird kind of moment in the text because Socrates doesn't believe that. He's just he's not making things up. It's like slander. He's accusing him of something that a different philosopher did. My dear Meletus, do you think you are prosecuting Anaxagoras? Are you so contemptuous of these men and think them so ignorant of letters as not to know that the books of Anaxagoras of Clazomenae, it's a tough word, are full of those theories, and further that the young men learn from me what they can buy from time to time for a drachma at most in the bookshops, and ridicule Socrates if he pretends that these theories are his own, especially as they are so absurd? Is that by Zeus what you think of me, Meletus, that I do not believe that there are any gods? Meletus again, that is what I say, that you do not believe in the gods at all. You cannot be believed, Meletus, even I think by yourself. Even I think by yourself. The man appears to me, men of Athens, highly insolent and uncontrolled. He seems to have made this deposition out of insolence, violence, and youthful zeal. He is like one who composed a riddle and is trying it out. Will the wise Socrates realize that I am jesting and contradicting myself, or shall I deceive him and others? I think he contradicts himself in the affidavit, as if he said, Socrates is guilty of not believing in gods, but believing in gods. And surely that is the part of the jester. So, like I said, he contradicts the charge that's brought against Socrates. Examine with me, gentlemen, how he appears to contradict himself, and you, Meletus, answer us. Remember, gentlemen, what I asked you when I began, not to create a disturbance if I proceed in my usual manner. Does any man, Meletus, believe in human activities who does not believe in humans? Make him answer and not again and again create a disturbance. Does any man who does not believe in horses believe in horsemen's activities, or in flute playing activities but not in flute players? No, my good sir, no man could. If you are not willing to answer, I will tell you and these men. Answer the next question. Answer the next question, however. Does any man believe in spiritual activities who does not believe in spirits? No one. Right? So he sets up a different class and he says X activities believes in X. So therefore, that's a general rule that we sets up some cases, and by setting those cases, they come to an inductive rule. From that inductive rule, they then say, well, just like that general law, here's a case that applies to it. And yes, we intuitively agree with that case, and it fits the rule, the universal inductive law. This is how phenomena of nature are often studied, pattern recognition. Um, it's different than abduction, though, which is like we said before, the in the Bergstone video, abduction is the conclusion of best fit. So you have lots of pieces that could go in different arrangements. You find the arrangement that makes the most sense in the cleanest way, with the um, least likelihood for error, the least fallibility, and the least complexity. And so that's the highest stability and the simplicity. Stability and simplicity. Least error, least complexity. Okay. Thank you for answering, if reluctantly, when these gentlemen made you. Now, you say that I believe in spiritual things and teach about them, whether new or old. But at any rate, spiritual things according to what you say, and to this you have sworn in your deposition. But if I believe in spiritual things, I must quite inevitably believe in spirits. Is that not so? It is indeed. I shall assume that you agree, as you do not answer. Do we not believe spirits to be either gods or the children of gods? Yes or no? Of course. So then he relates spiritual activities with spirits, and so then that's above, but then just now relating spirits with gods. Then since I do believe in spirits, as I say relating, it's not quite identifying, but it's identifying enough that it puts it within the category to make the principle, the universal law that applies to the broader category, equally apply to its submembers. Then, since I do believe in spirits, as you admit, if spirits are gods, this is what I mean when I say you speak in riddles and in jest. As you state that I do not believe in gods, and then again that I do, since I do believe in spirits. If, on the other hand, the spirits are children of the gods, bastard children of the gods by nymphs or some of their mothers, as they are said to be, what man would believe children of the gods to exist but not gods? That would be just as absurd as to believe the young of horses and asses, namely mules, to exist, but not to believe in the existence of horses and asses. You must have made this deposition, Meletus, either to test us or because you were at a loss to find any true wrongdoing of which to accuse me. There is no way in which you could persuade anyone of even small intelligence that it is possible for one and the same man to believe in spiritual, but not also in divine things. And then again, for that same man to believe neither in spirits, nor in gods, nor in heroes. I do not think, men of Athens, that it requires a prolonged defense to prove that I am not guilty of the charges in Meletus's description, or deposition, Meletus's deposition. But this is sufficient. On the other hand, you know that what I said earlier is true, that I am very unpopular with many people. This will be my undoing, if I am undone, not Meletus or Anytus, but the slanders and envy of many people. This has destroyed many other good men, and will, I think, continue to do so. There is no danger that it will stop at me. So it's not about something just, true, righteous, accurate, all the things that Socrates is in fact trying to advocate for, prove, defend, beautify, beatify, or yeah, beatify like a beatitude. Um, None of those things matter ultimately in the realm of humans for the past 2,500 years, whether it was Socrates or if in the Christian tradition it's Jesus. Jesus says a lot of similar things. Um, People forget that in both cases, it's the state itself abusing violence against critics of the state. I think in Plato's case, he's still a statist. Um, Part of Book 7 of the Republic is to show that the deconstructive Socratic method, which pulls apart through criticism, it criticizes all the pre-existing structures. And if you just have a kind of naive young person who hates the world and wants to destroy everything, they criticize all these structures, and there's nothing tangible or life-giving left to support to replace them. no truth. That's what they actually say in their Republic is that they need to believe in truth still, despite these criticisms, despite these dialect. It's the dialect. That's what I was looking for. So the Socratic method, the deconstructions, it's all a dialectical process of understanding that no one position adequately suffices to the intuitive, adaptable reason of the mind. The fourth level of the divided line, understanding. There's belief, imagination, imaging, belief. So you see different one-dimensional images. Belief is multidimensional originals in the world, in the material world. Then you flip that into ideas or concepts in the mental realm, in the there's a word that they use, intelligible realm. And then beyond that, with no assumptions, no first principles, just true fluidity in the forms, the adaptable forms. Um, I don't want to like misrepresent Plato, but I'm so charitable to him that I just want to try to read him. Um, where the forms are adaptable, they're not immutable per se. They're somewhat immutable, but they're flexible and they're not concepts. They're not those rigid things that Bergson is critical of. That's a different level in Plato. Um, I think that that dialectical reason is like kenosis. We're getting off track, sorry. Um, so yeah, this is all kind of a reflection on the state and the state's prejudices, the affective biases of citizens, democracies, statesmen. Um, and the ways in which just because the state is prone, I was also thinking about the Republic because just because so Socrates is critical of I think Jesus is more critical of the state than Socrates is. But because Socrates wants to say you guys are doing it wrong. He's not saying you shouldn't be doing this at all. He's saying you should be doing this only in the cases which are justified, true, and universal, which do exist. And that's consistent with Plato elsewhere, where again, he thinks that the philosopher king is somebody who should not be so naive to destroy everything, but does still search for truth constantly at all stages of their development. Queen, philosopher queen, um, the philosopher ruler. Someone might say, are you not ashamed, Socrates, to have followed the kind of occupation that has led to your being now in danger of death? However, I should be right to reply to him, you are wrong, sir, if you think that a man who is any good at all should take into account the risk of life or death. So now reading into the separation of death and harm, he should look at this only in his actions, whether what he does is right or wrong, whether he is acting like a good or a bad man. According to your view, all the heroes who died at Troy were inferior people, especially the son of Thetis, who was so contemptuous of danger compared with disgrace. When he was eager to kill Hector, his goddess mother warned him, as I believe, in some such words as these: My child, if you avenge the death of your comrade Patroclus and you kill Hector, you will die yourself, for your death is to follow immediately after Hector's. Well, whether that death is physical or moral is it's unclear to me because I'm not versed in Greek mythology that deeply. Um, but anyway, hearing this, he despised death and danger and was much more afraid to live a coward who did not avenge his friends. Let me die at once, he said. When once I have given the wrongdoer his deserts, rather than remain here, a laughing stock by the curved ships, a burden upon the earth. Do you think he gave thought to death and danger? This is the truth of the matter, men of Athens. Wherever a man has taken a position that he believes to be best, or has been placed by his commander, there he must, I think, remain and face danger, without a thought for death or anything else, rather than disgrace. It would have been a dreadful way to behave, men of Athens, if at Potidæa, Amphipolis, and Delium I had, so Socrates was there in these battles, I had, at the risk of death, like anyone else, remained at my post, where those you, been a dreadful way to behave if I had, at the risk of death, remained at my post where those you had elected to command had ordered me, and then when the god ordered me, as I thought and believed, to live the life of a philosopher, to examine myself and others, I had abandoned my post for fear of death or anything else. That would have been a dreadful thing. And then I might truly have justly been brought here for not believing that there are gods, disobeying the oracle, fearing death, and thinking I was wise when I was not. To fear death, gentlemen, is no other than to think oneself wise when one is not, to think one knows what one does not know. No one knows whether death may not be the greatest of all blessings for a man, yet men fear it as if they knew that it is the greatest of evils. And surely it is the most blameworthy ignorance to believe that one knows what one does not know. It is perhaps on this point, and in this respect, gentlemen, that I differ from the majority of men. And if I were to claim that I am wiser than anyone in anything, it would be in this, that as I have no adequate knowledge of things in the underworld, so I do not think I have. I do know, however, that it is wicked and shameful to do wrong, to disobey one's superior, be he God or man. Excuse me. I shall never fear or avoid things of which I do not know, whether they may not be good rather than things that I know to be bad. Even if you acquitted me now and did not believe Anytus, who said to you that either I should not have been brought here in the first place, or that now I am here, you cannot avoid executing me. For if I should be acquitted, your sons would practice the teachings of Socrates and all be thoroughly corrupted. So if they let him go, but or if they wanted to let him go, but they couldn't because they were worried about him corrupting their youth, even though he's not really guilty of what they think he's guilty of, but they want to like get him out of the way for some other reason. Um, and so if because of that they told him, Socrates will let you go, but you because you're not, we don't we don't have a right to kill you. But we need you to stop doing this stuff because we think it's bad for our kids. Um, he'd take the death because he wouldn't stop doing philosophy. If you said to me in this regard, Socrates, we do not believe in Nidus now, we acquit you, but only on condition that you spend no more time on this investigation and do not practice philosophy. And if you are caught doing so, you will die. If, as I say, you were to acquit me on those terms, I would say to you, men of Athens, no, I'm good. You can kill me. I am grateful and I am your friend, but I will obey the god rather than you. And as long as I draw breath and am able, I shall not cease to practice philosophy, to exhort you, and in my usual way to point out to any one of you whom I happen to meet, good sir, you are an Athenian, a citizen of the greatest city with the greatest reputation for both wisdom and power. Are you not ashamed of your eagerness to possess as much wealth, reputation, and honors as possible, while you do not care for nor give thought to wisdom or truth, or the best possible state of your soul? This is also the way in which the state of the soul produces the material wealth. The excellence of being produces value. Arete produces value. Virtue produces value. So associated with the labor theory of value, where value is the quantification or the tradability or the tangibility, the commensurability, the interpersonal exchangeability. So in that sense, value is a social determination. I don't want to say social construct, it's a social determination based on excellence as well. My excellence in relation to your excellence, my ability to compete, ability in relation to your ability, my ability to produce a meal, to harvest grain in relation to your ability. Now add on that to that, the capital that I have access to. And in the deepest sense, I guess, it's a bit might makes right because I might have abilities of warfare. In the oldest sense, this is what it is. I have abilities of warfare, and those sustain the ability to maintain my capital so that I can continue to do it faster than you can do it. Power imbalance. But there's also more so than all of that, more so than the excellence of warfare, right? Being able to survive a fight and maintain control, um, is the excellence of justice, purity, and spaciousness. And that's the kind of arete or best possible state of your soul that Socrates is concerned with, right? The person who leads a city by teaching that city to be good, and then every one of them can do whatever they're going to do, but even better. They can go be warfarers or um, defenders, or they can be craftsmen or farmers, but they're going to do it with more excellence because their souls are pure. Uh, that is the most valuable thing because it augments everybody else's excellence. And if you can imagine the excellence of a hateful person farming versus the excellence of a good person farming, not only does it produce more happy, this is Aristotle's argument for the complete eudaimonic form of happiness in a community. Not only does it augment the person's personal well-being to have friends and be in a good, joyous relation with others. Joy gives energy, whereas fear diminishes energy. Um, but it's also good for their community to have that kind of person providing that service more so than a hateful person providing that service. Everyone around them will live better lives and they'll have more energy and more value to inject into the economy too. Um, I'm saying all this because at the end of the paragraph, Socrates says, excellence makes wealth and everything else good for men, both individually and collectively. But he doesn't explain it. Give me 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. Um, so let's pick back up here. While you do not care nor give thought to wisdom or truth or the best possible state of your soul, then if one of you disputes this and says he does care, I shall not let him go at once or leave him, but I shall question him, examine him, and test him. And if I do not think he has attained the goodness that he says he has, I shall reproach him because he attaches little importance to the most important things and greater importance to inferior things. I shall treat in this way anyone I happen to meet, young and old, citizen and stranger, and more so the citizens, because you are more kindred to me. Be sure that this is what the good God orders me to do. And I think there is no greater blessing for the city than my service to the God. For I go around doing nothing but persuading both young and old men among you not to care for your body or your wealth in preference to, or as strongly as, for the best possible state of your soul. As I say to you, wealth does not bring about excellence, right? You don't, this is behaviorism, having the techne or the technique, trying to replicate the dogma or the doctrine of how you saw somebody else do it. This is what it looks like. This is what it appears or seems whenever somebody else has the virtue or the excellence of the soul that enables them to accomplish this feat. And so you try to replicate it with all this mechanism and the behaviorism. But that capital, that materialism is not um, capable of creating a soul. The capitalist is wretched. And that's why it leads to colonialism too. The capitalist having no culture of their own, no soul of their own, has to colonize the other cultures, the other souls, try to replicate them and extract their intrigue, their value, what is interesting from them, and externalize it and consume, consume, consume while colonizing and um, stripping cultures. There's a significant coherence here. and a significant consilience to different discourses that aren't often brought together. Consilience is by E.O. Wilson. It's a term in evolutionary biology to describe when different disciplines or fields come to the same conclusion from different methodologies and sets of data. Anyway, you can look it up if you want to. I just told you what it is. Now, if by saying this I corrupt the young, this advice must be harmful, but if anyone says that I would give different advice, he is talking nonsense. On this point, I would say to you men of Athens, whether you believe in Itis or not, whether you acquit me or not, do so on the understanding that this is my course of action, even if I am to face death many times. Do not create a disturbance, gentlemen, but abide by my request not to cry out at what I say, but to listen. For I think it will be to your advantage to listen. And I'm about to say other things at which you will perhaps cry out, but by no means do this. Be sure that if you kill the sort of man I say I am, you will not harm me more than yourselves. Neither Meletus nor Anytus can harm me in any way. He could not harm me, for I do not think it is permitted that a better man be harmed by a worse. And that definition of better and worse is about the self-harm that each has inflicted. Um, to the integrity of the excellence or the arete of their own souls and their own character and their own being by causing order and flourishing or distraught chaos and destruction and discord in their environment by bad actions. So that's I guess I'm thinking of the way that it's interesting that harming someone else only harms yourself, but that it does have to do something to someone else that is considered wrong and is considered a harm, but that is incurred by the self, not in the other, but does materially disrupt. So how do we describe that qualification, that state of affairs that has to be met? Harm to someone else, but harm is only to the self. What do you call that? Because it's a thing. It has to, part of the logic of the harm to the self is that this condition must be met, is what I'm saying. Certainly he might kill me, or perhaps banish or disenfranchise me, which he material disenfranchisement is a good way to talk about it because you can be disenfranchised to death from the body itself, which he and maybe others think to be great harm, but I do not think so. I think he is doing himself much greater harm doing what he is doing now. It's disenfranchisement because the soul persists beyond the death of the body. Or there's nothingness. Socrates says that. All right, we made good progress. We're probably going to wrap here in a minute. I think he is doing himself much greater harm doing what he is doing now, attempting to have a man executed unjustly. Indeed, men of Athens, I am far from making a defense now on my own behalf, as might be thought, but on yours, to prevent you from wrongdoing, from hurting themselves, by mistreating the god's gift to you by condemning me. For if you kill me, you will not easily find another like me. I was attached to this city by the god, though it seems a ridiculous thing to say, as upon a great and noble horse, which was somewhat sluggish because of its size, and needed to be stirred up by a kind of gadfly. It is to fulfill some such function that I believe the god has placed me in the city. I never cease to rouse each and every one of you, to persuade and reproach you all day long and everywhere I find myself in your company. Another such man will not easily come to be among you, gentlemen, and if you believe me, you will spare me. You might easily be annoyed with me as people are when they are aroused from a doze, and strike out at me. If convinced by a nidus, you could easily kill me, and then you could sleep on for the rest of your days, unless the God in his care for you sent you someone else. That I am the kind of person to be a gift of the gods of the city, you might realize from the fact that it does not seem like human nature for me to have neglected all my own affairs and to have tolerated this neglect now for so many years, while I was always concerned with you, approaching each one of you like a father or an elder brother to persuade you to care for virtue. Now, if I profited from this by charging a fee for my advice, there would be some sense to it. But you can see for yourselves that for all their shameless accusations, my accusers have not been able in their impudence to bring forward a witness to say that I have ever received a fee or ever asked for one. I, on the other hand, have a convincing witness that I speak the truth, my poverty. It may seem strange that while I go around and give this advice privately and interfere in private affairs, I do not venture to go to the assembly and there advise the city. You have heard me give the reason for this in many places. I have a divine or spiritual sign, which Meletus has ridiculed in his deposition. This began when I was a child. It is a voice, and whenever it speaks, it turns me away from something I am about to do, but it never encourages me to do anything. This is what has prevented me from taking part in public affairs, and I think it was quite right to prevent me. Be sure, men of Athens, that if I had long ago attempted to take part in politics, I should have died long ago and benefited neither you nor myself. So he kept his head low and tried to figure things out. Because if he was making a fuss, accusing people of all the bad things they're actually doing in politics, they would have killed him. Um, Do not be angry with me for speaking the truth. No man will survive who genuinely opposes you or any other crowd and prevents the occurrence of many unjust and illegal happenings in the city. A man who really fights for justice must lead a private, not a public life if he is to survive for even a short time. I shall give you great proofs of this, not words, but what you esteem, um, but what you esteem the most, deeds. Listen to what happened to me, that you may know that I will not yield to any man contrary to what is right for fear of death, even if I should die at once for not yielding. The things I shall tell you are commonplace and smack of the law courts, but they are true. I have never held any other office in the city, but I served as a member of the council, and our tribe Antiochus was presiding at the time when you wanted to try as a body the 10 generals who had failed to pick up the survivors of the naval battle. This was illegal, as you all recognized later. I was the only member of the presiding committee to oppose your doing something contrary to the laws, and I voted against it. The orators were ready to prosecute me and take me away, and your shouts were egging them on, but I thought I should run any risk on the side of law and justice rather than join you for fear of prison or death when you were engaged in an unjust course. This happened when the city was still a democracy. All right, I feel some exigence, I think is the word Sartre uses when the outside world pulls something out of you. When like he says like it's just as particular to each person too. I feel a particular pull to maybe go make breakfast or repair a set of shoes, or repair a book. You feel different pulls depending on what your demands are in your life. So exigence is exigency, exigencies, an urgent need or demand. But the phenomenological dimension of an exigency is a literal kind of you could see it in my face. I'm not doing that again. That was kind of painful. Um, it was weird. There's a tense tugging that kind of yanks you from your sense of self and pulls you into a future that you aren't in yet. Um, you okay, Winchester? All right, we gotta pay the dog tax. Cards are coming up. Come here, boy. Get up here. No. He wants to go to the desk now. Come on. Come on. Oh. All right. Thanks, guys. See you soon. We'll do another video. Bye. I think the next one will wrap it.